Gretchen Carlson has become one of the most influential voices in the Me Too movement.
After leaving Fox News following a sexual harassment lawsuit against its CEO, she's been traveling the country uncovering stories about sexual harassment and abuse.
She's bringing them together for a 2-hour documentary called Breaking the Silence that airs Monday night at 8 o'clock on Lifetime. Ashley had a chance to talk to her about it.
Let's get right to it. What was this like for you to put this together?
Well, I got to travel all across the country starting in the summer into the fall because I really wanted to focus on the every woman's story. You know, so much attention in this whole Me Too movement has been given to well-known journalists or famous Hollywood actresses, but this is a pervasive epidemic all across our country, and it cuts across every profession and every socioeconomic line. And I wanted to tell the stories of the fast food workers and the minimum wage workers and the firefighters and, you know, women that hadn't had their stories told yet, or maybe didn't have the means to be able to have their stories told. So that's what the focus is of this doc, in breaking the silence for those women. And then I help them by trying to go to their places of establishment where they work and try and get answers for them. So you'll see in this documentary, which I think will be groundbreaking in the changes that could occur, is that we do 3 exclusive interviews with 3 women who work at McDonald's, and that they allege that they were, you know, sexually assaulted in some cases and harassed on the job, and that nothing was done. And so I pound the pavement to try and get answers for them. And so, you know, I think it's more than just sharing the stories of these women. It's also trying to hold the companies accountable for the actions that they allege happened.
What was that like for you, going through that, having gone through it yourself, to help other courageous women coming forward and sharing their stories? What was that like for you?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that, because in the documentary, we also follow my personal journey. We go back home to my small town in Minnesota, and we talk to my parents, and it's an incredibly emotional journey for us to revisit the courage that it took for me and us as a family to come forward. And we speak to my best friend and the impact that it had on my other personal relationships. And so, you know, I think the common bond between myself and these other women across the country is that we can share in the pain and agony that comes along with facing this kind of behavior in the workplace. And unfortunately, it's a pervasive epidemic, so almost every woman across this country could share a story with you. You know, it's one of my other hopes that when this documentary airs, that it will again foster conversation amongst women and men about, you know, coming forward and telling their stories, but how do we take it a step farther and actually fix this problem? So I hope that companies will also do more introspection as a result and say, are we doing everything we can to make our environment safe?
I was just going to ask you, what do you think it is going to take to fix this problem right now?
Yeah, so, you know, a lot of companies, the majority have sexual harassment policies and the majority have sexual harassment training, but is it really working? You know, that's the big question, or is it just more of a kind of cover your you-know-what facade? And I think that in many cases, it's been just that. And so I hope that companies don't think that this is just some sort of passing moment, this whole Me Too movement, because really the way I see it is that it's a cultural revolution, and that we have to all agree that we're going to come together to try and fix this. So, you know, the one main thing companies can do is, instead of shoving this into silence and getting rid of the woman when she finally has the courage to come forward, is change that whole thing, upend it 180 degrees and say, you know, we're actually going to honor people who have the courage to come forward. We're going to honor witnesses who have the courage to come forward. Because in the end, instead of firing all these women, we're going to retain these women, and we're actually going to add to our bottom line, and we're going to make our society better as a whole. So this is like a huge decision for us as a nation, to come together and decide that we're going to try to solve this problem.
What was it like for the women that you spoke with to share this, share their stories, many of them for the first times, and in such a public way? For them, on national TV, their stories are being heard. What was it like for them to share with you?
Exactly. You know, and I have to share with you that in some cases they had told their stories to other news outlets, and then they never ran them because of the power that some of these big companies have in our nation. So they were hesitant at first to tell me their stories, but, you know, a hat tip to Lifetime for having the bravery to tell these stories. And these women, I think, felt this symbiosis with me because they had seen my story, and so I think they trusted me that I would tell their story in an accurate way. But, you know, it was painful for them. And I shared with you that in some cases it wasn't just harassment, it was actually alleged assault on the job. And for these women to have to relive that was, you know, incredibly emotional.
Yeah, and quickly, we've got about 30 seconds. What are you hoping people take away from this documentary?
Well, I hope there's change as a result. You know, the R. Kelly documentaries that have been on Lifetime over the last couple of days have been highly watched, and there's now change coming out of that. And following on the heels of that, we hope Monday night when my doc, Breaking the Silence, airs, that there's also change, you know, especially in the companies that we focus on, that they'll do more introspection and decide to change their policies to make the workplace safer for women. That's the ultimate goal.
All right, thank you so much, Gretchen Carlson, for sharing your story and for sharing this documentary. Breaking the Silence airs the Monday at 8 o'clock on Lifetime.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, there's a new degree program coming to our area. If you're interested